saying we don't even know how to start this live today. Because we were talking, weren't we, and saying, is there any way we can just start with a bit of chit chat to just help people a bit? But I think we are feeling like most of the rest of the world today, and I'm sure so many of you are, utterly devastated for those people. Oh my God, and the news last night was just unbearable, wasn't it, Mark? I just found myself weeping watching the news last night.
I don't know why, I think last night was the most distressing footage. I mean, obviously it's all distressing, but the footage of kids ducking and running and
crying, running with their teddies and their bunnies and I was just listening to a woman on the radio there. She says, you know, we are leaving, just me and my parents and my child, my 5-year-old child. We have one bag, we have a little water, we have a little food, and the clothes we're standing in.
Mm. There's so many people leaving their parents or grandparents behind. It's just, you can't help but transplant your own scenario into what you do in that situation. You know, we replaced the abandoned grandparents with your parents and my mum. We replaced the little girls and boys running, some with glasses to, you know, Kiki when she was young. It was just, it's just hideous. It's just hideous. You know, to hear that we've awarded 50 visas.
Mark, be careful, because I might just start smashing the house up.
So let's just think about that. This is 50 visas.
55.
55. Well, they've got it to 5 more since last night. This is of a specific group of 5,500 Ukrainians who have family here.
Literally.
So we don't need to do biometrics or check
family here. It's James O'Brien. So let's just all put ourselves in that place, right? Our home is here. There's heating, there's food, the door is open, it's your family. They're running for their lives whilst they are being attacked by basically our modern day Hitler. And we're waiting here with the door open. James O'Brien just said 150 of them yesterday that managed to get to Calais, because that's where they had to go to get the visa to come and join their family, and were told, no, they now have to go to Paris. Just absorb that. These are people that are saying, I have a little water, I have the clothes I stand in, I have my elderly parents and my child, and now go to Paris. James O'Brien said he had to read it 2 or 3 times because he didn't believe it, and he was brilliant. I was just saying to Mark, because he said, you know what, Priti Patel's refugee policy is working absolutely brilliantly. He said, it's perfect. It's 100% perfect in the way that it's working, because she doesn't want to give refuge to any of these people, and that is what's actually happening.
I mean, what staggers me is it definitely feels like the Tory party are having to appeal to their, you know, grassroots base. I can't believe in this catastrophic World War III-esque tragedy, the government are still thinking about how this plays for their grassroots voters who probably voted for Brexit, and grassroots voters who can't stand any form of immigration whatsoever, even though this country wouldn't be what it was with immigration. I just don't, it beggars belief. And then add to that what you're seeing, I feel embarrassed yet again. And I was banging the drum for Boris in terms of diplomacy and all that kind of stuff. But this is just such a shocking...
This is a shameful... And you know what's so amazing about the British people? The British people have raised 100 million in the last week for Red Cross. And that money is out there now. It's on the ground. It's helping these... And our government allows 55 people in.
Is it 55? Has it gone up to 55?
55.
I suppose they'll sell that as a 10% increase. Do you know what I mean? How they play with...
But apparently there was a heartbreaking, I know lots of you listened to LBC this morning, of this woman who was talking about this 14-and-a-half-year-old boy who is being sent to website. His sister is here. She said she's the most hardworking person. She's here waiting to look after him. He's a 14-and-a-half-year-old boy. He's been told, go to this website. The website isn't working. Go to this, go to here, go to there, go to this, go to that.
Where is that compassion?
What? And you know what? This is a really important thing. The Ukrainians are taking this for us, for all of Europe.
Yeah.
They are the first port of call for Putin. And there, but for the grace of God, could any of us be a refugee? Any of us could be a refugee at any point. And look at the way we're treating these people. Well, not the British people, I have to say.
No.
The government, the Home Office.
I mean, an interesting way to kind of replace this, it's like I was saying to Nadia, is how would we imagine us caught up in a much wider European, conflagration, and we're looking to America like Ukraine is looking to all of us for help. You can kind of understand that they're screaming for no-fly zones and they're saying that you're just going to stand by and watch us all die. I mean, NATO are in an invidious position, and I have to confess, the piece of news this morning that took my levels of managing to cope with this crisis to a new low, if I'm honest, was the fact that the Americans are replacing old Soviet-era jets, fighter jets in Poland, with new jets. That's for the Polish army. The new jets are for the Polish. But they're sending them so Poland can release these old Soviet-era jets to send to the Ukrainians to use, or potentially to launch from Poland. And Putin has said, if that happens, that's a declaration of war by the country that does it. So right now, Poland is in such a tricky place. The Americans have green-lit this as a procedure. Blinken and Biden have green-lit this. And if I'm really honest, for me, it's the most petrifying step after everything that's happened, obviously, in Ukraine, in terms of this potentially spreading. You know, they've often said, the problem with this invasion is how it can inflame and catch fire and spread. And this could be one of those situations. The West have to double-check, triple-check, quadruple-check their every move. And I'm curious to know if Putin's direct threat of war to whichever country does this has been checked. It's for me, it's one of the behind the scenes, although it's not that behind the scenes. I've seen it pop up in a number of papers. It's one of the developments I think potentially, awfully, we're going to hear more about. So that's, for me, is like a sucker punch. That's taken all of my sort of, hope out of the situation. And yet at the same time, so many people are saying we need to do something more. You can hear the mood music is saying more and more that some kind of aerial support has to happen. And it's just this terrible, terrible situation where your head goes into your own hands and you think, what the fuck is going to happen if we do that? And at the same time, you're thinking, how the fuck can we stand by and watch this happen to people? I mean, this bastard has got us absolutely over a barrel.
Well, as we said the other day after that brilliant conflict journalist we were listening to, Putin used Syria as his playground. He tried out all his bombs.
Tested his kit.
The suffering in Syria has been unbearable. The suffering in Afghanistan. That doesn't mean that we don't care here, because I know a lot of people say, well, this happened in Syria and we didn't do anything. And it's all horrific. All of it is absolutely horrific. Yet Liverpool lass, if only that could happen, someone should take Putin out. If only that could happen. Unfortunately, he has got an absolute, hasn't he, wall of iron around him.
Yeah.
He worked for the KGB. We were listening to somebody the other day saying he knows every kind of assassination attempt. He knows how it works. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen that anyone's going to take him out. I mean, more and more you've been hearing. Now, if I hear one more TV presenter or radio presenter ask whomever, what about a no-fly zone? We said last night, didn't we? Oh my God, Toffee could answer this question now. NATO is defensive force. You can't attack. As soon as one American plane or British plane or whatever other plane, other NATO country, hits a Russian plane, we are at war with Russia. But more and more you're hearing people say there has to be some other show of strength. There has to be, because he won't stop. I mean, he's seen how we behaved in Afghanistan. He's seen what we did or didn't do in Syria. Now is going to be the time that some show of strength is going to have to happen.
Melanie Williams is saying this is all whataboutism. Russia is too poor to go to war with the world. Yeah, but that on paper is a logical assessment of the situation. But how unhinged is Putin? And we're not talking necessarily about nuclear strikes. We're talking about him potentially attacking Poland, or sending a big bomb to Poland. You know, they are the thing about the Russians is they don't view nuclear arsenal or nuclear weaponry in terms of it only obliterates the world. They see, I was talking to a friend of mine online, they see nuclear artillery as a justified standard part of their battle kit for localized warfare. So for the Russians, dropping a limited nuclear armament on Ukraine could be fair, you know, could be all right. I mean, yeah, it will cause an outrage in the rest of the world.
For him, be careful.
But, yeah,
The way you said
it
that.
Could be cause, it will cause further outrage in the rest of the world. But in a sense, he doesn't care. Okay. The rest of the world has already expressed outrage. So the danger with the threat against Poland is that if he threatens a localized nuclear attack or savage artillery attack on Poland, you know, they might not be able to afford to go to war with the world, but they can afford to do extraordinary damage without caring what the consequences are. So who wants to gamble that? And yet, in what ways can we afford not to gamble that? I think that's what the West, there's this beating drum in the West of feeling like, shit, we have to do something. And when you look at every something that you look at to do, Putin, like in a massive game of chess, is standing there with his queen on the chessboard, just going, go on then, and I'll take you out. It's really hard. I mean, it's really hard.
Jade Louise is just saying that she's heard we should leave messages on restaurants, Google, where you leave reviews, messaging the Russians of what's actually happening.
Well, did you see Anonymous, the hacktivists? They have,
oh no, what have they done? Oh, please tell me about them. Do you know about Anonymous?
We did talk about it a while back.
But so I only just found out about it. So tell them, just in case there's new people.
Well, Anonymous is a global, unidentifiable group of hacktivists who hack into, they haven't just done it with Russia, they've done it with the FBI, CIA, all this kind of stuff. They are sort of the Robin Hoods, if you like, the freedom fighters of the internet world. Well, they've been hacking lots of institutions in Russia to try and help or try and allow the Russians to see and hear what's going on.
Amazing.
But today they've hacked television stations so
have
that
they?
No, they have done already. Where when they hacked websites in the media in Russia a couple of weeks ago, we've only been going for 11 days, about 6 days ago, where when they went online, a gravestone came up, sort of suggesting this, this is what's going to happen to your soldiers. Anyway, they've hacked one of the major Russian TV stations today, or in the last 24 hours, and they are pumping footage from Ukraine of what Russia is doing. So, once again, there's huge endeavours, at work in different ways to try and get this information through to the Russian people. Because the problem is, you see, I saw a poll about 6 days ago that said 75% of Russians have signed up to the idea. I know we're seeing pictures of 10, 15,000, 20,000, but it's a massive population. And that's not their fault. They're the victims of a propaganda machine.
And he's told them that 400 soldiers have died in Russia, but they're saying the number's more like 10,000.
Well, that's what.
Soldiers
well, you've got to bear in mind also. There's going to be sort of there's propaganda on both sides.
Yeah.
We support one type of propaganda, obviously, but there is propaganda on both sides in order to defeat the morale. So we'll never know what the number is. Lee Peart, hi Lee. It's very difficult.
Hi,
often the difference between doing what is right and what is easy is it's about standing up to him, but at the same time not backing him into a corner. I mean, I've been saying this all along.
Impossible.
He's got to have a ramp out of this. He's got to have a way out.
There was a archbishop, I think, this morning talking from Ukraine. He's never leaving. This staying. He said, "What you don't understand is we know what will come if we're occupied, the gulags, the brutality, so everyone is prepared. We are all prepared to die rather than be under his occupation." And I just fear that a lot of that has been said, and I just fear so much for the Ukrainians that he's just gone, fair enough. That's what you want.
Jade Louisa says she's starting the process of moving her family to Australia because she's too afraid of Europe. I think you're going to find people are getting a little bit twitchy about living in Europe. Lots of Russians are trying to leave Russia. I mean, lots of Russians are trying to leave Russia, but of course it's very. I mean, I got a Russian visa years ago to work out there, and good God, the hoops and hurdles you had to go through and jump over. Harold VO says, pretty much the only thing we can do now is expedite and ease up refugee status for Ukrainians. I agree, which is what makes it even more of a shameful dereliction of duty by this country to not be able to do more than 55 fucking visas.
What's that?
If Biden and NATO guarantee neutrality for Ukraine, Putin will back off. A compromise, but could save many, many lives. You're right. If he was to say, look, they're not going to become members of NATO, but we can guarantee neutrality. You're right. You're right. That's.
But don't forget, it's gone from that now. That's not his argument. His argument is he's freeing the Ukrainian people from the neo-Nazis Ukrainians. So he's shifted the goalpost. It's not, in his madness. It's not. That's not even what he's talking about anymore. No. Because he's not attacking them because he fears they're going to be, or he is. But his narrative is that he's saving the Ukrainians.
It's quite something. Apparently, someone said an actor has been shot. Henrietta Henson. The thing is, we would not survive a nuclear attack, but Russia would. Well, as soon as they trigger a Russian attack, unfortunately, it triggers all of our side too.
And you also, though Russia will, of course, not be honest about what they have and what they don't, the Americans will have way more of whatever it is that they've all got.
Well, the actual number is Russia has, legally, the Russians have 6,000 nuclear warheads and America has 5,500 and we have 123.
Do you really think America is going to tell the truth about that, though?
Well, you do wonder. You wonder whether these superpowers aren't going to, and they don't share all of their technology and all of their kind of, tech and what have you. I mean, when you get to it, you sort of, sometimes you embrace the narratives of kind of war films, and there is that desire to want to go, yeah, fuck you, Putin, we're coming in. I mean, of course. And I think it's really hard for the West to kind of, or NATO to kind of manage that sensibility. It's really hard.
God, look, New Zealand's taken 125 refugees in today. We've taken 55.
We're looking at 1.5 million have left. I mean, it makes you, I was saying to Nadia yesterday, it makes you think what the other, half the population can't leave because it's probably about half. Half the population can't leave because there'll be men of fighting age. Then there'll be a huge percentage of sadly older people who can't leave or perhaps have decided just to stay put. But 1.5 million, it's the biggest refugee movement or migrant movement since World War II.
What about, there's been talk this morning about, because the Russian economy is already absolutely on its knees, the ruble is the lowest it could possibly be, interest rates are off the scale. But we're in danger now of pushing him closer to China.
Yeah,
because China can help with all of that.
Well, China are doing this curious thing where they're sending in aid for the Ukrainian. They're trying to support the Ukrainian aid effort. I think they're going to send money. They're going to send whatever, but they're not. They're standing back from not dealing with Russia. We've got an incredibly ambivalent attitude from China. I mean, for sure, the net result of this entire crisis is that Russia and China will be a united force. It's a united force. And there was already talk in China about, a united and, sort of cohesive and mutually respectful assimilation of Taiwan. I mean, China will be looking at China will be looking at this and thinking, how can we do this in Taiwan?
It's like Lee says, and it's so true. China's running with the foxes, and what's the other one? Hunting with the hounds, waiting to see
which way this falls.
Where they can, because he's exactly the same guy as Putin, President Xi. I mean, they are the same. Autocrat. Well, he's probably not as unhinged. I think he's more cold, cool, and calculating. Whereas at the moment, it feels like he's unhinged, Putin, doesn't it?
We did see the Sky News crew that were under fire. It was quite shocking. Sarah Palmer.
Apparently, his wife, his mistress, and 4 children are in Switzerland.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Wife, yeah.
You wonder how much he cares for anyone. So, I wonder if they're just sort of cannon fodder. Sarah Palmer, the pandemic didn't make people kinder when I hoped it would. Instead, it enraged the sociopaths who seeked control in every area of their lives and couldn't at that time. Exactly. It has now got out of control.
Exactly.
It's true, yeah. Ella T, China won't want to increase trade with Russia too much more because China can make so much more by trading with the West.
Exactly,
China,
exactly.
yeah.
There's that as well, isn't it? It's just, you go this way. That's
Yeah.
what I keep saying to the kids.
Yeah.
I say, don't forget, none of these superpowers wants to obliterate Europe because where will their stage be for their egos, and where will the money come from, and where will they holiday, and where will they, so...
I think also big discussions are happening about, apparently we're still paying because we're all so dependent on the energy from Russia still, because if we just turn off the tap completely, we'll all be tipped into a total abyss. But apparently I think we're still paying something like $750 million every day for oil and everything. And so there's a frantic move in the West to try and become energy independent, and to have autonomy. Here's a good one. Tara Fitzgerald in Ireland, usually useless government, is taking in 100,000 Ukrainian refugees and have already taken in 1,250. And one of the arguments that was being thrown out by a certain number of Tories who were popping up in various broadcast outlets was, we're so much further than Poland, which is why we will have so much fewer. Well, that's knocked into the long grass by Ireland, which is a little bit further still from Ukraine.
I mean, the point is, you don't have to think there's going to be millions coming here, because these people want to go back home.
Yeah.
They want to be as close to Ukraine as they possibly can. I think people just, I think economic migrants, that's a whole nother topic. But, these aren't people that are coming here desperate for a job. These are people coming here who are desperately trying to save the lives of themselves and their children.
Wonder Woman, did anyone see the Russian athlete wearing a Z symbol? Scary, isn't it funny?
Yes.
The Z symbol is becoming a
Stuck
little
it
bit
on
like
last minute, like the swastika.
Exactly, they've got a symbol for because this was a symbol that kept popping up on their tanks and on their military
What's it
vehicles.
stand for?
I don't know. I just think is it a symbol just generated to create fear? So you
It's
see
like
a Z.
swastika.
Yeah, it is.
And remember when Hitler was doing what he was doing, we didn't have social media, we didn't have rolling news, we didn't have journalists witnessing everything. We were seeing on the news yesterday children being shot at. We were seeing people who'd been, literally being blown. I saw a man yesterday that I rented a bit of footage. We saw the shell hit him.
Yeah.
We know what's going on.
Yeah.
What about those double rockets that were just raining, just non-stop? Again,
Yeah.
I have to say, we did watch this in Syria. The Syrians, God bless them, again, they want to live in Syria. They don't want to live here in a B&B, treated like rats.
I wonder if this eventually, if it goes on for long enough, will end up like Syria, just falling down the news agenda and just becoming a tolerated conflict.
Well, it's that weird thing, isn't it, where you want it to fall down because it's not as bad and it's not, but at the same time, it's like, I feel this state of panic that we mustn't lose.
Well, Sell Amen says, President of Ukraine, wave the white flag to save your 44 million people's lives, negotiate a peace treaty, stop the Rambo routine.
Well, that's a very
interesting.
Thank you for that, because I really, really worry that, he's going to win. Putin is going to take Ukraine.
Take over.
He's going to take Ukraine. And we talk about this a lot, don't we? It's like, what is going to be left? But then when I was listening to that Archbishop this morning, he said, leave nothing. We can't live under Russian rule.
But
we are prepared to die.
But it's like Seleman says, there has to come a balance between saving lives and even having your country.
He has asked to meet Putin, hasn't he?
Yeah. Laura Lou, the Russian protests are amazing. Have you seen that? Most Russians don't want this. When they fully are across the facts, which is why I think it's really good that Anonymous are pumping the footage through. I heard a couple
What else do you think Anonymous could potentially do? What kind of...
Well, I wish they could just disable the
world.
entire military system. That would be quite nice, wouldn't it?
But potentially they could.
Well, they're getting pretty high up, that's for sure. Lee says, Ukraine's mentality is that it is better to die standing upright than to live life on your knees. Yeah, and I suppose until you're in that position, it's a very easy, what do they call them? Armchair generals.
But I always think of the people that don't want to fight.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I don't think I could shoot somebody. I don't think I could, but then I don't know, probably.
That's interesting. Myra Instant says the Russia-Ukraine story was already the 7th story on the news here in Oz after Shane Warne.
Really?
Yeah. Bev Berry, given to Putin here, and Finland, Sweden and Norway are next. He's a nutcase.
Well, this is it. I mean, he warned them a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
You start talking about joining NATO and see what hell will be rained upon you. You know, I mean, we can't stop at the thought, really, that he could just keep going.
Chris White, we would love to see NATO intervene, but that would actually save Putin by swinging the Russian people behind him.
We're being attacked by the
in
West.
an existential crisis. It would muddy the water while now it's so clearly an unjust war. That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
But the Russian people, okay, here's a question. We keep saying the Russian people need to know, the Russian people to know. What would the Russian people be able to do? He is such a force.
Well, he's got 15,000 protesters in prison, I think. Is that
exactly.
right? Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think we're going to get a revolution where they can overthrow him.
Jenny J says he's killing civilians to get the West to react. All of these things are true. He's goading.
Yeah,
He's goading.
He's goading us all the time, isn't he?
Yeah. Who would fight for your country? Who would fight with a gun or a Molotov cocktail? Who would fight? Which of you would fight?
Well, I think if we were in the situation that we're in at Ukraine, I think you would. There's no choices there, is there? There's no choices. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide for them. And certainly there isn't anywhere in the UK for you.
Yeah, look, all day long.
Yeah, we can't put ourselves in that. You can't put yourself in that place of abject terror. We can look at it, we can be horrified, we can be heartbroken, but we can never really know.
No.
You know, we can... Yeah.
Sorry, guys. It's one of those days where I just some days you just you can manage your news consumption, but you can't manage your despair, and that doesn't necessarily connect to the news. And I'm having my mints weren't great this morning anyway, and this is just some days it's too much.
Somebody asking there, do we know anything about Alexei Navalny? Well,
he was posting something. He did post
he's
something.
my hero. He's my hero. I think he's incredibly brave. He's always been brave in the face of Putin. But I really don't understand why he went back to Russia. It was so crazy. He knew they would arrest him. He's in a gulag. He's in Siberia. I wished he'd have stayed out. Europe would have given him... He would have been able to come to anywhere in Europe and live. And then he could have been managing the opposition outside of Russia. It's
you've said that. Yeah, you said that a lot.
It's always like he was so angry that it was like he's so enraged that he was like, "No, I'm coming back to my country," but he just needed to be sat down and not allowed to do that.
Can I just ask, what happened to the concept of UN peacekeeping troops? I mean, that seems to be a thing of the past.
Because Russia is part of the UN.
Is it because they're vetoing it? Then they should be kicked out.
They should be kicked out. They're in the process of war crimes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's simply why we can't do it.
Yeah.
Because they'd veto the vote. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Well, you know what?
But you know what? If we did do that, he would then say, I see UN as the same as NATO. So the first UN troop that sets foot at our borders, we will see that as an act of war. Basically, whatever we do, he's going to pipe up and say that's an act of war.
I think Poland, I think the whole jet thing in Poland, for me, is the under-the-radar concern that I've got right now. Tra-la-la, my boys have both asked if they would have to go to sign up if we went to war. That scared me that it's in their thoughts. They both, however, said they would. Well, yeah. Tricky one today.
Yeah.
Tricky one. Guys, we're gonna head off. Hopefully we'll be in a more sort of... It's that difficulty of distracting seems so trite and disrespectful, and yet at the same time looking it in the face. Yeah, looking it in the face, one feels just such helplessness. I think everyone deserves a Xander Group hug. Do you think? Come on then, Mandy Wilson.
And a little kumbaya, my lord. That's what you always need. I was reading about all the different ways we can calm our anxious, our nervous system. Do you know humming apparently does something physiologically to you?
But
Humming.
also, I know you think, also deep sighing.
Deep sighing, deep breathing,
yeah.
walking, music not for me because it just makes me feel so emotional.
Yeah.
Yoga, really, really powerful. Yoga is.
Yeah.
I'm finding it hard to settle. I haven't done any yoga this morning because I can't find myself to settle enough to do it.
Yeah.
But it is in my head. It's a beautiful morning here. I don't know what it's like where you are. Sunny, but even that, I feel sort of like
Guilty.
I sort of vulnerable going out. It's the weirdest thing.
It's like COVID again.
It is.
It's like COVID
but
again.
like a million times worse.
When you ask if
that
there's...
little girl with her fluffy ball
I know.
hat. Oh
I know.
my God.
Don't. When you ask if there's any good news, it's really around sport.
Well, the good news is, around the incredible acts of humanity that we are seeing everywhere. I've been posting bits and pieces on my Instagram stories today because I find that really helps. And there's some really good accounts to follow. I would say, search for good news accounts. Good News Dog. I've actually been Baby World happy, just watching babies doing lovely things. The Good News Movement, Good News. And these accounts... really focus on, because everything, it feels so inhumane. You've got to remember this is one man and his cronies at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot of evil around the world. But the majority of the world is horrified by this and trying to find a way, in whatever way it is, a huge way or a little way, to do something about it. And I think, that's why I just want to sort of pump that out today on my Instagram and just because it does give me a little bit of, there's a beautiful little... Can I just play this quickly, Mark? From my stories. This beautiful little Ukrainian girl. Now, it's very sad at the same time, but I think it illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. That helps me. Just 1 second, sorry. Just bear with me. That's in a shelter, look. That's just in an air raid shelter. This little girl, beautiful little girl, just singing Let It Go.
Yeah, no, the singer, the woman who sang the song, I think has either acknowledged it or sang something back.
Back to her.
Yeah, something like that.
Don't.
Yeah. I know she's done. I saw her name pop up in the press somewhere.
Yeah,
Let It Go.
Yeah, and to remember that 100 million in this country has been raised in this country. I mean, it's just mind blowing with the struggles that people are going through. That 100 million has been raised. Wow.
So come on, government, do your
Come
bit.
on.
Do your bit. Just change it now and just
Come
change
on.
it. Just change it, guys. Try and have as good a day as possible.
We love you lots.
yeah.
Like jelly tots.
Take care. Bye.